Hey, what's up? It's Jason Lucchesi, and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I am so excited that you are here with us right here, right now, because we have a great show in store for you, and we're going to be covering a topic that really not a lot of investors know about, except for our expert that we have on with us today. I was able to meet Ryan in person at our event, the No Flipping Excuses Show, back in March of 2018. And we've been Facebook friends for a while, but you never know. You want to meet that person in person, face to face, and see how they are. And Ryan is awesome. He's a super cool dude. And we've been friends, like I said, for a very long time through Facebook, and finally got to have that interaction with meeting face to face. And Ryan shared a ton of great content. So Ryan Nickle, how are you doing, my man?
Hey man, I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me, bro.
Absolutely, man. So for folks that don't know you, Ryan, don't know about, some of the amazing things you're doing, and we're going to be discussing skinny deals, which not a lot of other investors really are doing, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table. But for those people that don't know you personally, Ryan, let's talk a little bit about, how you got started in the business.
All right, man. Like every other pro that I know in this business, I lost my job. Back was against the wall. Not that everyone loses their job, but their back's against the wall or something like that. I mean, I know very few guys that just grew up in real estate, and that was my situation. I lost my job. A guy reached out to me, and he's like, "Man, I see your family struggling," and I really was struggling. And
Yeah.
I was on food stamps. I didn't know how to provide for my family in just the way that I wanted to, and I knew I needed to as a man.
Yeah.
And so this guy reached out to me. He's like, "Man, leave your family, not like permanently, but like," he's like, "leave your family and come to Georgia, and I'll teach you how to do this real estate stuff." And so I literally took that leap of faith, kissed my wife and kids goodbye, cried a little bit, and it was tough,
Yeah.
and drove my car cross country.
Wow.
And I slept on the guy's floor for about 3.5 weeks, just trying to figure out how to do stuff. And his way of doing business was get an option on the property, turn around, sell that option, make some cash. And I made some money in 3 weeks. Got a check for 20 grand, and you can say the rest was history after that. But it was a challenge.
That's a big deal. $20,000 from going from food stamps, driving across the country to learn this business. And then within a very short period of time, you make $20,000, which I'm sure was a game changer.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
When I left my wife and kids, I was crying. When I called her after the check, I was crying, but for different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I was so happy, man.
That is awesome, dude. That is awesome. I'm a big believer in options. I've done tons and tons of, I've actually only done notices of option to purchase. You've done a lot of different types of options, which we talk about with your skinny deals. So Ryan, let's hop into this. What is a skinny deal?
All right, man. Yeah, no problem. So I appreciate you asking that question. So a skinny deal is basically anytime you have a wholesaler that ties up a property and he's going to turn around and he's going to flip it to someone else, so like a rehabber or someone else that's going to buy it from him, they have a certain margin that they're trying to get out of that deal. Well, anytime that margin of those that math doesn't work, that's considered a skinny deal for us.
Okay.
And we'll buy those properties all day long. In fact, we'll even buy them if they're upside down.
Nice. So how does that process work? So are you getting those? Are you doing like a lease option on those? Are you doing a subject to? Like, what does that constitute as far as like meaning? Like, what does a skinny deal like actually mean?
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate that. So yeah, diving deeper into that. So I'm actually going to get the property tied up, and I'm going to actually buy it subject to that existing debt. So I want to own that property. I want to control that property.
Yep.
And then what I'll do is I'll turn around, and this is how I make money, because I mean, no one just wants to take over bad debt.
Right.
Like, what's your exit strategy? So for me, the skinny deal is just basically sandwiching myself in the middle. So I now own the property. I've taken over the debt, and then I'll turn around and I'll either do a lease option, as you mentioned,
Yep.
or I'll do a contract for a deed or a land contract, something that they're going to be paying me on installment sales.
No, that's awesome, man. So now you have cash that's coming in every single month by doing, an installment deal like that. And now you have this cash coming in. You're essentially the bank right now.
I am the bank, right? And not only do I get the cash monthly, which is kind of how we live. This is kind of how I dug myself out of that situation of being, on food stamps and things like that. But we also get down payments from people that are moving into the properties. They don't just move in. They have to have some kind of skin in the game. So we're getting 10% down on average for these properties.
No, that's awesome, man. And we were talking about a deal offline here about a gentleman that saw your car because you have the information about your business on your car, which I believe is a smart thing. They contacted you. And here's my thing real quick before we hop into this. Yeah. Is every single person that you reach out to, are they motivated, or do you have to find out what their motivations are? Because I see tons of marketing out there, and I believe it's kind of misleading, brand new people saying, hey, we've got unlimited motivated sellers you could find. But is it really true that every single person that you're going to contact is motivated?
Not at all, man. Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, I've come up with like certain phrases over time to help me just kind of, fish out their motivation. I'll drop one right now. Is one of them, and I got this. It's not my original one, from a guy named Peter Fortunato.
Yep.
And Pete will go into a house and be like, looking around, like, who would want to sell a house like this?
Yep.
And I literally ask that question, and all of a sudden, they'll just dump all of the information they have on like why they want to get rid of that property.
Exactly, man. And I'm glad that you said that, because I believe in order to find out what their motivations are, you have to first find out what the problems are. And then you have to diagnose to see if you could solve those problems. And then that person becomes a motivated seller. Like, there's so many things out there like, hey, buy this software. It's going to pull up all the motivated sellers in your area. It's like, no, all of those people are not motivated. You have to first talk to them and see if they're even somebody that wants to sell their home. If they are at that point, then you need to find out what their problems are so that you could solve them.
That's so true. I mean, of course, you can always, guess like, oh, if someone's in pre-foreclosure or someone has code enforcement and liens against their property, they may be interested in selling. But I mean, I don't know about you. I door knock and I'll go and knock on a pre-foreclosure. He's like, get off my property. I'm not selling. Bank's going to have to drag me out. I'm like, okay, man.
Yeah. No,
you're in foreclosure, they're going to sell to you.
Door knocking is still such an underused strategy for finding deals, especially pre-foreclosures, man. Like, those people, if you talk to them, I've had cases too where the person's like, the bank's going to have to come and, drag us out of here. But for the most part, I'd say probably 8.5 or 9 out of 10 people, they're going to say, hey, come on in, let's talk. And they're going to tell you somebody lost their job, somebody passed away, something happened, and that's the problem that they're facing, and they need you to solve it. And it's crazy how that happens. So tell us about, how you approach your door knocking people. Like, what's your approach when you go, you knock on the door? Like, how does the conversation go?
All right, so I'm gonna back up here. So
yeah,
we talk about motivation here. So for me, I gauge differently now. So I used to go and knock on every single pre-foreclosure door, and then I realized that there are some people that are just like, hey man, get off my property. I'm not going to sell you my house.
Sure.
And so what I started to do was to cherry pick my pre-foreclosures. And so I would actually find out which ones are already vacant, which ones they've washed their hands and they've walked away and said, hey, bank, you can have it.
Yep.
I'm looking for these laydowns. And so I still go and door knock those properties, but I don't actually door knock the house. I door knock the neighbors on both sides, and then the 3 across the street, directly in front of it, and then kitty corner.
So smart.
By just doing those 5 contacts, I got all the ammunition that I need. And sometimes they give me a warm introduction with a phone call or a phone number.
That's
and
awesome.
I've been able to close on those almost. I mean, it's almost a complete laydown. And my approach is, to answer your question, is, hey, I saw you have a house over on 123 Main Street. What is your plan with it? Or what plans do you have with that property? And then I pause and I say, or are you going to let the bank take it from you?
Now, do you feel like when you talk to these folks, what would you say as far as like a percentage of them know the difference between doing a short sale or letting the property go back to the bank?
No, none of them. Unless they've spoken to a realtor. But even then, they've walked away. And some of these people are kind of hard to find. And most real estate agents are not going to do that extra legwork and go talk to neighbors and investigate and stuff like that. They're just going to move on to the next deal.
So do you feel like, and some people may not be paying attention to the market right now, but we've been seeing an increase in pre-foreclosure notices being served in a lot of markets that we have students in. And people are undervaluing the knowledge that they have. Some people feel like, hey, I haven't done a deal yet, but use that to work in your advantage because you have knowledge to explain to somebody the difference between a short sale and a foreclosure. So
right.
It's huge because when you go and talk to a homeowner and they feel like they have no options, especially when they move out, they've already left the house, they're mentally checked out. But what they don't understand is the negative consequences, what happens when a property is foreclosed on. So
right.
It's crazy that, you know, not a lot of people know about that.
It's true. It really is. And when you educate them, and that's the whole point is like, people ask me all the time, how do I go find seller finance deals? I'm like, you don't find them, you have to create them. But like you say, when you're talking to them and you're sitting down, you find out what happened to them. You not only are creating an empathetic, relationship with the person because you can relate to them losing their job or their house or your loved one or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you educate them as well and become a resource in the transaction, that's not just someone that's trying to like buy their house and take their equity from them, but you're actually truly giving them options. Of course, by doing that, they're going to naturally lean towards you because you're the trustworthy guy that gave them that option.
Right.
But you've now just, separated yourself from the rest of the pack that are knocking at their door.
Yep. So with that being a skinny deal, you could turn that into equity by negotiating with the bank on that, correct?
Right. And what we normally do is we don't, if it's going to be a short sale. So here's my rule of thumb.
Yep.
Is I go by the 10% rule. And the 10% rule is all money's in to bring it current and maybe gives the seller some cash to move on. All my total investment money is if it's less than 10%, I'm 10% of the ARV of the property. So if it's less than 10% of the ARV of the property, I'm all in. I'm going to step forward and I'm going to go ahead and move forward with it, taking over the property and doing a skinny deal. If it happens to be more than 10%, like if it's $100,000 home and it's going to be like $25,000 to bring things current because they haven't been paying for 20 years or whatever, some crazy story, it's definitely going to be a short sale because there's no way I'm going to recoup my money on that.
Sure.
At least in the immediate future.
Sure. So if it's below 10%, so at that point, do you work something out with the bank to get caught back up? And then
I do.
Okay. So is that something to where you use your own capital for, or do you have like a private or hard money individual that's able to come in and help out?
That's a really good question. So right now, we are using our own capital.
Okay.
So we've done enough of these deals that we know that I say we, it's my wife and I. So it's our retirement portfolio. It sounds cooler when I say we. It's really me. I make it, she spends it.
Exactly. I hear you.
But I'll digress a little bit. So we've done enough of these deals that we have a formula that we know, okay, you know what? I can put money down right now. I can bring this current and I'm going to put a family in here and we're going to make our money back in 21 days.
Yeah.
Because they're going to give us a down payment. Because that's the reason I asked 10% is because 10% is our down payment. So we're into it for such a short window. So yes, we use our own money. I also have private money on the side that want to get in on it because our returns they're really good returns.
Yeah, I bet.
And then, but when I first got started though, this is how I got started. I had no money. I had no cash. I had to make it work. So what I would do is I would contract with the option on the property. And then with that option, I would go out and I would shop around trying to find another person that had the money and said, I'll buy it from you. And then when they did, they would put a deposit down. And when they put that deposit down, well, that's how I went and paid off the seller and paid off this thing. And then we just, did the deal and I stood in the middle.
Nice.
So when I first got started, I'm going to tell your audience, you don't have to have money in order to make money in this particular model. You just got to make sure that you're structuring the properties properly and then going out and finding the right buyer. And I would never commit to a property until I knew I had it sold. And that was by doing the marketing. And when they put the money down, I'm like, okay, bam, I got it sold. Pay off what I need to do, pay the bank, pay myself. And, one family got a house that's, going to be the forever home, supposedly.
And you're able to do that legally because you have the option on the property. It's recorded with the county of the property where the subject is. So you have now equitable interest in the property that allows you to go out and shop, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And for people that don't know that is huge because you don't want to just have a purchase and sales agreement and then start blasting it on, Craigslist, Zillow, all that type of stuff. Yeah. That's what's going to get you in trouble.
Exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and most guys that do that are pitching the property instead of the contract.
Exactly. So even in that scenario, Ryan, you could actually probably wholesale that to somebody else that if you have no cash, you could wholesale it for like a small fee, maybe do like a release of option fee. And then you could get paid that way as well, especially if you're just getting your feet wet. You don't know from A to Z yet, but you could still make 5, 10, 15 grand for a release of option.
Exactly. Let me share with you a true story. So
Sure.
this is a story about my number one. He's actually my business partner now, but he was my number one buyer for the longest time. And I shouldn't say we're not like, we're not in the same LLC, but we partner on a lot of properties.
Sure.
So I got a property under contract, and the option that I had the terms. It was a duplex. It was a rundown duplex, and it was a 2-story duplex. Upstairs was just beat the hell. It was a piece of crap. And downstairs was the same way, but the lady had been there for about 15 years, and she'd only been paying $500. So I negotiated. The contract was $1,000 down as my and then $500 a month for 60 months, and then a balloon payment for $100,000. So I was into it for contract was for $100,000, and I gave the guy the option. So I paid the $1,000 and turned around and sold it to a guy for $6,000.
Nice.
He wanted to rehab it and take over the option and the payments and all that stuff. And I really needed the cash. Like I really, really needed the cash bad because we were strapped. This is way before we hit the big time. And I wouldn't even say that, but it was still, we were, our monthly cash flow did not exceed our expenses at that time.
Gotcha.
And so, but it was a great deal. And that's exactly what I did was I sold my option for an assignment. So I assigned my option to this guy, and then he closed on the deal.
That's awesome. So that could absolutely be done. And, when I was just getting started too, I was using options. So options are great.
Right on, man.
Options are great.
Options
in my opinion.
Options.
That's awesome, dude. So why don't we have you, Ryan? I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind sharing, what's like a couple marketing strategies that you personally are finding to be useful in your market? And I know all markets are completely different.
Right.
One guy says bandit signs work in his, another one says they don't. So every market's different. So I'm curious, within your neck of the woods, being in California, what's been working for you?
Okay, I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll tell you what works the best.
Okay.
Because I do a lot, and so basically I'll give you like my top 3.
Sure.
All right. So, just driving for dollars and just seeing distressed property and getting out and knocking on those doors, sending them a mailer. I use, I take a picture of the property, mail them a picture of the house, and they call me.
Yeah.
I've closed several of those deals.
Nice.
There's a nice app out there that does it for you. I was doing that before the app was ever invented. I seriously would go out and literally take a picture of the house, develop the picture, and on the back of the picture, mail it to the person and say, "I'm interested in buying your house. Give me a call."
That's smart.
And people would call me, and I got those deals. I was bootstrapping it, man.
Yeah.
I had to be, how do I make this thing work with like little to no money? And that was like the most affordable option I could come up with. That's
awesome. That's really cool.
So I did that. And I still do that. I just, have got a little bit more sophisticated in my marketing on that. So that's one thing. Tell you what, dude, I go down to my county recorder or my county courthouse office, and every state and every county is different, but I'll pull probate leads, and I'll just pull, who the decedent is, who the petitioner is. And I will mail a letter to them. And, I only mail one time. I could probably be better at that, but that one time is keeping me extremely busy.
Nice. So what type of responses are you getting from, the probate list? It's probably pretty high, since it's probably a smaller list, right?
Yeah. So so when I have 2 counties that I pull from. I go down on the first Tuesday of every month, and our counties are combined, so it's not that difficult at all.
Sure.
And I'm maybe pulling between 17 and 22 new leads a month. And of that, I'm getting about 4 or 5 phone calls.
Nice. That's good.
And yeah, it is. Some of them are motivated. Some of them aren't. Well, before I even do that, so before I even mail to the person, I upload it to my VA. I basically because I go into the courthouse, I write down the information, and I take a picture, and I send it to her, and she puts it in the spreadsheet and everything. But cool. One of her tasks is to look and see if it's, 1, listed for sale and has been price drops, and 2, is it in pre-foreclosure status? And if it's in pre-foreclosure status, I don't wait for them to call me. I call them immediately.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And quick question here, and I forgot to ask this earlier when you were saying you were door knocking and you had a strategic way to do it. Are you finding out like if water mains are shut off, if power is shut off? How are you finding out those people are vacant?
Oh, great question. Yeah, that's a California thing. I think so. I use a software called Property Radar.
Okay.
And it's like the West Coast. And what you can do, well, no, let me back up here. So yeah, Property Radar does allow me to sort by vacants.
Okay.
But even before I had Property Radar, because I couldn't afford it originally, it was like $80 a month, and I'm like, man, I can't do that. So what I would do is I would pull up Zillow, and Zillow has, it has the red for sale, and then gold for recently sold, and then blue for pre-foreclosure.
Yep.
And so what I would do is I would just pull up on my map when I'm driving for dollars, and I look at the blue dots, and I would drive by and see if it was vacant or not.
Oh, cool.
And then I would track down that owner that way.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, that works.
So that's how I did that.
No, that's great.
Yeah. Another side note is, anyone can go into the local county or city and ask for the code enforcement officer to give them a list of their property.
Yep, absolutely.
And
it's free.
It's free, yeah. And well, now because I've closed on a couple of them, they call me now like, hey, we just got this another one, man. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Can you take care of it for me? I'm like, yeah, man, no problem.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, he lives about 3.5 hours south of me. He's doing some really cool things. He's actually become friends with a code enforcer. They go out to lunch and stuff, and he gets leads directly sent to him. So because he knows, like, the property is gonna, like you said, like the property is gonna get updated, rehabbed, and a good family is gonna come into the neighborhood now. It's not gonna just be sitting there like an eyesore. Also,
the case that they can have now, their case is now closed, and they get paid on those. I mean, I don't know if they'll make like a commission or anything, but the fact that the city gets paid on those open liens is a big win for the city as well. Absolutely. He looks like a superstar. Yeah. One thing I found though, I kind of got spoiled with my code enforcement guy. He had sent me so many leads, and I'm like, I'll take my time. And I literally took my time on one of these, and I went around. I finally got around to it. And what I had found is that he didn't wait for me. He told somebody else that closed on it.
Oh man.
And it was a sweet deal. It was just paint and carpet. And the guy turned around, he cleared about 6 figures on it. Whew. I was like, oh, are you kidding me, man?
Oh no.
So now I have the same guy is now chomping at my heels as I'm going around, and like I'm scurrying to get all my other ones closed, which I just did. I closed one on Friday, and I closed another one the previous Monday. So because he's chasing those as well, he just doesn't know I closed on them already. So it was getting kind of So you gotta be careful with that. You can't let you can't get fat and lazy with these deals.
Right, exactly. Yeah, somebody else will scoop them up for sure. That's hilarious. So that's awesome. So you're doing the driving for dollars method. You're finding out probate leads from the county. Did we go over the third one?
We didn't. The code enforcement one was kind of a bonus, but here's the third one. So, and this is kind of unique to me. It's because I do skinny deals.
Yeah.
I'll just call it you'll see signs out there that says we buy houses or other wholesalers. I'll just call them straight up. And they'll be like, hey, man, I don't have a house for sale, but I'm wondering, have you recently gotten any deals lately that, you wanted to close, or the seller was super motivated, they wanted to close, but they just didn't fit, the math didn't work? He's like, oh, man, we've got tons of those deals, man. I got to pass on them all the time. Because I don't know about you guys, but our market's changing. We're starting to hit a little bit of a slump now. And so I'm hitting those guys almost weekly because they're paying for the marketing. They have already got the deals out there. They know who they are, and they have turned into be great referral partners for me.
Yep. When we were doing lots of short sales, the number one resource for us was other wholesalers.
Brilliant, man. You got it, man.
Because they didn't want to do anything with them.
Exactly. I mean, turn their trash into cash.
Exactly, man. No, that's awesome. So besides some of the stuff that you're doing with the skinny deals, so some of the wholesales that you're doing too, let's talk about those. What's a crazy deal that you could talk about?
Okay, dude, this one took some balls on my part, because for me it was like a risk. It was a complete and total risk.
Yeah.
So I found a house that was just a crazy story. Okay, so all right, get this. I find this house door knocking, and I go in and I talk to the neighbors. There's no liens whatsoever owed on the property.
Yep.
So I go and I find the heir. I actually called the funeral home and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for the next of kin. And of course, they won't give me that information. And they're like, what's it regarding? And I said, well, I have a check for them. They're like, okay, hang on real quick. And I get a phone call back.
Oh, no.
And so this lady calls me. She's like, I heard you got a check for me. I was like, yeah, I do actually. I want to give you a check for your brother's house.
Oh, no.
And she's like, okay, well, I'll sell it to you. I'll sell it to you for some $70,000. And ARV is close to about, 246 on this one. I'm like, 70 is a great deal. So I'm into it. We have to probate it because there's no probate done on it. And so I hook her up with my attorney. She's working through it. She's like, I need her to come in to get some signatures done. And I screwed up on this one. I never got her to sign a contract with me.
Oh, no.
And it had been like eating at me. Like at night, I'll go to bed and like the quiet right before I fall asleep. It's like, Ryan, you got to get this lady's contract. And sometimes I'm dumb and I ignore those feelings, man. So we're into it for like, I don't know, probably about a good 2.5 months. And my attorney's like, look, I'm going to have to close this deal because she's not coming in. And so I call her up and I'm like, hey, I just need you to, she's like, I'm not going to sell that house to you.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, we have a contract. She's like, no, we don't, Ryan. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Well, you've been talking to my probate. No, I haven't. Like, she gets crazy on me.
Oh, man.
So at this point, I'm like, crap, I'm going to have to eat this one. And we're into it for a couple of grand right now. And I'm going to have to eat it. So I go try to talk to her at the house just to get her to sign something, right? And she literally like screams that I'm harassing her. And I'm just like, okay, I'm out of here, man. I'm leaving the house. Here's what I found out. No one wanted to probate this house because they thought that the government was going to come and take it because the guy had been on government assistance or medical assistance for a long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case. It never happened. But when I told her that, she actually moved into the property because now she has a house free and clear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let this one lie. You know what? It is what it is. I'm rehabbing another house, a light rehab job, and the code enforcement officer has to come over and he has to take off the red tag because we bought it out of pre-foreclosure because it was red tagged and stuff like that. And he's going over his list of properties. He's like, do you have this property on this street? And I was like, I do actually, but I had to back out because the lady she decided at the last minute she didn't want to sell. And I said, honestly, I would love to just bury her on it because I did a lot of work on it. Like I was being vindictive, right?
Yeah.
He goes, well, why don't you just go to the heirs? I'm like, there are no heirs. He's like, there's a will. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh, no.
There's a will? He goes, yeah, there's a will, man. The guy gave everything to his caregiver, who's this young kid, like this young, 30-year-old kid.
Oh,
and I'm like, are you joking me? I'm like, give me the copy of the will. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't give you a copy of the will. You're gonna have to go to the funeral home and get a copy of the will. So for 4 weeks, I'm trying to get a copy of the will from the funeral home and no one would give it to me.
Oh, no.
Finally, I go down there and the funeral director goes, because he's been gone actually. So it was a bunch of directors. So finally the owner of the company goes, yeah, here's the will. No problem. So I go and I find the family. Now, I don't want to make this a super long story, but there's a great, great ending to this thing. So I find the family and they're like, no, we don't. Our attorney has told us that we don't want to probate this house because there's some medical liens that could come on and be against us. And and the liens are way, way more than what the house is actually worth. So we're just going to let it be. We don't want anything to do with it. Don't come again. Don't bother us. We're done. And I'm like, oh, crap, dude. Now I want this house.
Yeah.
Now that's a competition between me and this lady and everybody else. So I'm swimming, and this is where I get a lot of my ideas of swimming because it's just me in the water and it's quiet. And the idea comes to me was if I go and I buy properties from people, I'm buying their interest out of these. Because what I normally do with my pre-foreclosures, in order to avoid the due on sale clause, is I put them into a trust and then I buy their interest out of the trust.
Okay.
So it's completely legit. The family's transferred into the trust. They own the trust. I just buy that interest now.
Nice.
And now I'm the beneficiary. And so the thought came to me was like, why don't you do the same thing for the will? Go buy the beneficial interest of the will. And I'm like, I'll be damned. Why don't I do that? So I go over to the guy's house. I had draft everything up myself and I have my attorney review it. She goes, you need to change this and tweak this, but this is how you do it. And I give him a check for $1,000. And he's like, let me talk to my attorney and we'll get back to you. So he calls me back a couple days later. And then he says, we've talked to my attorney and the $1,000 check is too little. And I'm like, oh, okay. I go, how much do you want? He's like, I want $10,000 and it's yours.
Oh, wow.
And at this point, I'm like, I'm already into it for a couple of grand. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but $10,000 seems like it would be a pretty sweet deal if I picked up this house.
Oh man.
So, dude, I got scared and I walked.
Oh, really?
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding, man.
You got me.
No, so yeah, I met with the guy, gave him a cashier's check. He gave me the deal. That was on a Friday. In California, we're the only state that does this. It's called a court-appointed referee. Basically, it's a court appraiser.
Yeah.
And they have to go and they have to appraise it. And here's the caveat. And this is where you really got to know your numbers. And you got to know the law. So in probate law, in California, there's these different threshold amounts. And if a property is, $40,000 or below, then it's just, you don't even have to go through probate. If it's $150,000 and less, then it's just a succession petition.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm an heir. I want the property, give it to me. I'm the legal successor. If it's above 150, you got to do a full-on probate. You got to notify all the creditors. You have to publish. You got to do all of these things.
Sure.
And so I was betting on it because if there truly is a lien out there from the state of California for this guy's medical stuff, I was making the $10,000 bet that it would have come in under that $150,000 mark. So I paid the money, gave it to my attorney. 2 weeks later, it came in at 148.
Wow.
Following Monday, goes to court. The court assigns it over to me. It's my house. I own it free and clear. And guess who I'm in the middle of an eviction process right now.
Oh, no.
I know, dude. The poor lady's getting evicted.
Oh, man.
But I already have it. And I have a contract with the buyer. We're in escrow. As soon as the eviction's done, I have it in contract for 106.
Jeez. So you were what,
So,
12, 13 grand into the thing and you're selling it for 106.
When it's all said and done, it'll be about 15 with the eviction and everything. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Dude.
That's a great story that everybody should take note of that's listening to this thing right now. That is awesome.
Thanks, man. So many lessons though. I mean, one, never give up. Two, the lady could have had 70 grand in her pocket, man. And she just didn't want it. But I mean, being creative, being able to realize you can buy people's equity out of just about anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the creative side of this business that makes it so blessed, man. I love it.
And this has really been a really great episode that people at any level could take some really great nuggets away from this thing. And that's awesome, man. So Ryan, let me ask you this as we're getting to the tail end of this episode.
Yeah. What
has been a really, really good book that you would recommend, like a business book, an entrepreneur book, like, what's been like a good book that you would recommend to our listeners?
I'm gonna deviate from that just a little bit as far as like an entrepreneur or a business book.
Sure.
And this is probably been one of the greatest books that's shaped my success in this business. Because I think when it comes to business and things like that, there's just tactics and skills that we can learn just about anywhere. But I think where we fall apart, at least me personally, is the mindset. Like my mind is probably my worst enemy. Like there are times where it's just like, give up. Who are you? You're not good enough.
Right.
Or not even that. Like it's the whole thing. Like this has kind of been a really big eye opener for me. Is the whole, plan for the best. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And like I've grown up with that model. Like, I'm hoping for the best, but I'm making plans right now for the worst. And what am I doing by making plans for the worst? Is I'm preparing a place for it to come and and be served that.
You're making a plan B.
Exactly. And so and I'm not burning my ships behind me kind of a thing. And so I hope for the best, and I also plan for the best. I don't leave room for that other option.
That's great.
And the book that really got me, and I almost study it like a Bible every single day, it's called The Game of Life by a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn.
The Game of Life.
And, The Game of Life. It's this first one here. You can see in the.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Florence Scovel Shinn, and I mean, she was a predecessor to Napoleon Hill, and a lot of what Napoleon took from Think and Grow Rich is taken from her.
Oh, wow. And Think and Grow Rich was a great book.
Amazing book. Even the success principles, a lot of that is what she was teaching, and she was very biblical based. And I'll give you an example of this. So there was anciently there was these three kings, and they came to Elisha, and they're like, we need water for our horses and our camels. And he's like, go out there into this barren desert and dig ditches all day long, dig ditches, and they will be filled with water. Now anyone else would be like, I'm not digging ditches in the desert, man. I need water. But they went out and they did it, and they dug their ditches. And then that night, what happened? There was tons of rain, and then the rains receded. But guess what? Because they dug ditches, they now had water.
Right.
And the moral of that story is like, if you want something, go out there and show God, the universe, whatever, that you're willing to do the work for it, even though you can't see the result yet. Just go and dig your ditches, and they will be filled.
I agree.
And that was kind of like the principle I took with me on this this probate deal. Was like, you know what? I'm going to go dig my ditch. I'm going to go give this guy this 10 grand, and I'm going to wait for it to be filled for me.
That's awesome, man. No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've got something really unique that you want to give to our listeners, which I think is just awesome. It's a deck of cards, but the deck of cards has something unique on them.
Or the education flashcards.
Yes. The education flashcards. Where can people go and grab those?
They can go to Bootstrap REI, so Bootstrap Real Estate Investor. So it's bootstraprei.com/flashcards, all one word.
Okay, so bootstraprei.com/flashcards.
That's it.
All right,
Yep.
Cool. So go out there, get those. Ryan's got those available. It's you said they're free, right? Just the folks need to cover the shipping and handling.
It's $15. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. No, that's awesome, man. It's very inexpensive. And what is it? The flashcards. What you told me about it before we hopped on.
So it's broken down into 4 different categories because there's diamonds, hearts, spades, and clubs, and so they're different phrases and scripts that I use when I talk to sellers, when I talk to buyers. Some of the more common math that I do in doing these skinny deals, and then also marketing. How am I finding some of these deals? So it's broken down in those 4 categories. It's basically what I've learned over the last 4.5 years that have gotten me to where I'm at. Some of my best practices that I just want to share and give back. And if people just practice with those 5 minutes a day, just going through and rehearsing and practicing those lines, they become second nature when they're talking to sellers, and they'll see how many more contracts they're able to get because they're more influential.
No, that's awesome, man. So bootstraprei.com/flashcards is where you can get that at. For a small $15, your return on investment will definitely make itself over probably 20,000 times itself within your first 30 or 60 days. So Ryan, do you have any parting words before we go ahead and call it a show?
You know what? I don't, Jason. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you had to reach out to me. And I just love what you're doing, man. I love, the name of the podcast is amazing. Because people, there's no excuse for them not to get in there and make some money in this business. It is super simple. And some of your episodes, if they go back and listen, you have really dialed it in on how detailed someone can just basically listen to your podcast and just run and start making some money in this business, man.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, man.
To the community.
I appreciate it, dude. And you've given out some big bombs on this show. And I really hope that folks focus on the plan A with what they've been able to learn on this episode and don't focus on the plan B. So there is so much that you gave today. So I really, really appreciate it, Ryan. And I hope folks go and take up the opportunity that you presented with your flashcards. That is awesome. So if you enjoyed this episode with Mr. Ryan Nickle, make sure you go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We have the link if you're watching this right now on Facebook. We have it in the comments section. So make sure you go there, leave us that 5-star review, and drop a comment on iTunes. Let us know what you enjoyed about the show so we know and that we could continue to make more episodes just like this one. And if you need anything whatsoever, you could feel free to email us. It's support@jasonluchesi.com. And my last name obviously is kind of a mouthful, so I'll spell it out for you. It's JASONLUCCHESI.com. Support@jasonluchesi.com. But other than that, thanks again, Ryan, for being a guest on the show. And for those of you that watched, go flip a house. I'll talk to you later. Bye now.